I'd like to present our next presenter, Riley Douglas.
Good morning. My name is Riley Douglas, and I will be presenting my senior thesis on how moral values imply the presence of a divine being. Our world is full of different opinions. Politicians debate about whose policies will be better for the citizens of their country. Climate activists try to persuade others to cut down on carbon emissions in order to protect the environment. Sports fans argue if the GOAT is Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Everything in our world can be put up for debate. However, there is one discussion that holds more importance than all the others. Is God real? The existence of God can be explored through one of humanity's most important aspects, morality. Morality is the basis for proving the existence of an intelligent and benevolent creator. Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Emperor's New Clothes in 1837. In this story, a wealthy emperor only cared about one thing, his clothes. He spent all his money on new clothes and did not care about the army or public needs. Well, one day, two tricksters came into town with the intention to fool the emperor and his people. They made the claim that they could weave the most marvelous cloth because it was invisible to anyone who was unfit for their office or unforgivably stupid. The emperor loved it and ordered it to be woven right away. The emperor sent many of his officials to see the cloth and tell them what it looked like. But when they saw that there was nothing, they lied about its patterns because they were afraid to lose their office. At last, it was time for the emperor to see his new clothes. But when the tricksters showed it to him, panicked thoughts rushed through his mind because he could not see a thing. The emperor lied and told everyone how much he loved the patterns of the new, non-existent clothes. The tricksters were made royal knights of the loom, and a parade was scheduled to honor the emperor's new clothes. The tricksters demanded the emperor not to wear anything under the new clothes, so the emperor removed his garments and pretended to put on the imaginary clothes. During the parade, everyone in the town cheered for the emperor's new clothes because no one wanted their neighbor to think that they were stupid. However, a child spoke up and yelled, "But he doesn't have anything on." Eventually, the whole town joined in with the child chanting, "He has nothing on." The emperor, knowing he has been fooled, struts naked and more proud than ever, just trying to end this embarrassing parade. And the tricksters, swimming in the emperor's wealth, lived happily ever after. Long ago, science finally took the stage. Science came into the town. Great thinkers and scientists alike shifted the way the world thought. As they discovered more truths about the world, so their prominence and authority rose, leading people to easily believe what they said. They went from telling people the facts to preaching about things unseen, or estimations. If you don't believe in science, then you are stupid, said their followers, moving more people to go from skepticism to blind faith. With a gain of blind faith followers, the claims of truth stretch further from fact and more into things we don't know, evolution being the prize. If you don't believe in evolution, then you are stupid. Religion is just a hoax. How can you actually believe in that stuff? This has put religion under attack. Science went from glorifying our Creator to attempting to make him a myth. In spite of this attack, we need people to stand up and say, what if not everything science says is true? How are they so sure we are products of evolution? How are they so sure that there is no God? Scientists will tell you what they say is the truth, just like the tricksters told the emperor that the clothes were real. In fear of being seen as stupid, the emperor and all the townsfolk cheered for the non-existent clothes. However, all it took was a child to stand up and speak the truth. This in turn led everyone in the town to stop believing the trickster's lie. Now, this does not mean to completely abandon science. It is still a great institution with lots of beneficial facts. However, we need to be careful with the information we receive. Scientists and their followers will tell you that God is dead. But what if he's not? What if God is alive and has been since the beginning of time? For the sake of clarity, some terms will need to be expounded on. Morality can be defined as an objective set of principles that is widely accepted as right. Examples of right are righteousness, fairness, bravery, and respect. The law of human nature is the metaphorical angel on our shoulder that directs us to act morally and makes us feel guilty when we act immorally. Evolution in this paper refers to the atheistic macroevolutionist view that precludes the involvement of intelligent design. Also, the word God does not refer to the Judeo-Christian God or any other pagan deity. It simply refers to an intelligent and benevolent creator. The purpose of this paper is to find the truth about if our world was created by something higher, without going into detail about who specifically created it. C.S. Lewis was one of the most decorated Christian authors of the 20th century. He wrote the book Mere Christianity, which lays the claims for the basic principles of Christianity, starting with the existence of a creator. Lewis was raised in a Protestant household, but turned away from religion as a young man, before returning back to the faith in his 30s. His worldview changed when a prominent faculty member at Oxford University, T.D. Weldon, confided to Lewis that he believed the authenticity of the Gospels to be sound. This idea troubled Lewis and helped jumpstart his life without God into a deep devotion to the Christian faith. Stop! That's wrong. Give that back. It's mine. You promised you'd help me. How could you? Give me some of your snacks. I gave you some of mine the other day. I helped you. Now it's your turn to help me. These are all phrases that we say and don't pay much attention to. Even though the phrases are different in meaning, there is something that they have in common: the standard of right and wrong. What does that mean? Author Matthew Scully provides insight by stating, when we call something unfair or indecent or unconscionable or evil, when we speak of mercy and pity and compassion, those words have meaning regardless of our particular faith or moral philosophy. They appeal to common standards that we are all expected to understand and accept, standards without which we cannot live any common life at all. In the previous examples, the person talking has an expectation of conduct that they believe the target listener should follow because it is right in the speaker's eyes. The interesting thing is that the majority of humans have similar views on what right is. The idea of right and wrong is not a new thought because even ancient philosophers believed in the moral compass. Aristotle addresses in his writings that, from what has been said, then it is clear that one cannot be, strictly speaking, good without practical wisdom, nor practically wise without moral goodness. Aristotle believed that morality and wisdom were so closely related that in order for someone to be moral, they must also be wise, and vice versa. Even today, we associate people who make good decisions with attributes of wisdom. In our lives, we might expect others to act properly, but what's fascinating is that we, the individuals, also demand goodness from ourselves. We have this internal code that urges us to do what is right. Lewis calls this code the law of human nature, and the hard reality of this law is that we break it, not just occasionally, but all the time. There is hope in this. Even though we might break the law still exists. For example, if you go over the speed limit, the speeding laws are still present, and you might even get punished with a ticket for breaking the law. The same goes for the law of human nature, but instead of punishment, we feel this strange sense of guilt that we have done something wrong, and sometimes that feeling does not go away until we right our wrong. Something else that is strange about this law is that it does not seem to care about the pain it might cause you. Telling the truth is right, but when you do something wrong, owning up to your mistakes may cause embarrassment or even punishment. Sacrificing your health or your life for someone else is noble, brave, and seen as one of the greatest actions a person can do. But other than a medal or some other form of recognition, what real good does it do to you as the individual? In reality, it could potentially cause more harm than good. So why do we feel like we ought to do it? The answer is simple. We have this code that urges us to do what is right, hardwired somewhere in us. And that is what makes us human. This law that is real and inside us is one of the links between the physical world and the divine mastermind behind it. Now that we have an understanding of what morality is and how it affects us through the law of human nature, why is it so important? How could a law that urges us to do what is right potentially point to some creator in the cosmos? The answer lies in this. Without this creator, we cannot have any sense of morality. It is not that simple, though, because atheism and evolutionism argue that morality is man-made and evolved, not given to us by the divine. The idea of blind faith is confusing to some people, but what if it is not completely blind? Lewis states that if there is something behind, then either it will have to remain altogether unknown to man, or else make itself known in some different way. We live in a world where God chooses to be mysterious. The problem is, people only look at the black and white with God. Either he is real and we can see him, or he is not real and we cannot see him. One of the many adamant responses atheists make when they hear that God is real is, "Can I see him? Can you show me him?" This is a valid claim because there is no photographic evidence of any gods of any religions. Jesus Christ claimed to be the Son of God and is still believed by many to be God, but even so, his life on earth was only documented through eyewitness accounts. One problem with this way of reasoning is that people do not look hard enough for evidence of God. Believers are burdened to show non-believers evidence of a creator, but at the same time, non-believers don't want to pause, think, and look for God. To answer the question, "Can you show me God?" what if I told you that we can actually see a glimpse of God, and it has been hiding in the same spot this entire time? Lewis begins to unravel this question with the statement that there is one thing, and only one, in the whole universe that we know more about than we can study through external observation. And that one thing is man. We do not merely observe men, we are men. In all of science, we observe the world around us externally, but the one thing that you can internally observe is yourself. As Madonna put it, no one knows you better than you know yourself. So what do we know about ourselves? Well, for starters, we all get hungry and we all get tired. Moving further, though, we know that we are under a moral law that has great power over us. This power tells us to do what is right no matter what. This law is beyond human behavior because it controls our behavior and tells us which actions are appropriate for each situation. In a chain of commands, the higher power is the one in charge, and it commands the lower ranks. Using this logic, when you look for the true origin of morality, the only direction that you can look is up. Morality is above us, yet also inside us, as if something is trying to get us to do the right thing without being an overbearing force. Lewis summarizes this section with the statement that the only way we could expect it, a creator, to show itself would be inside ourselves as an influence or a command trying to get us to behave in a certain way. And that is just what we do find inside ourselves. Since the beginning of human history, people have often looked for the answer to the question, is there a God? Scientific theories have tried to replace God with rationality or facts, but the truth lies in every one of us through the law of human nature and morality. In the words of Dr. Justin L. Barrett, author of Why Would Anyone Believe in God? Belief in God comes naturally, disbelief requires human intervention. The statement, "I don't believe in God because science is fact and religion is faith," is one that everyone will probably hear at least once in their lives, whether in person or online. With the way science has progressed since the scientific revolution, it is not hard for one to unconditionally believe in science's validity. We are making groundbreaking discoveries and exploring things that people from 100 years ago didn't even think could be explored. This is good. We should discover more about our world. But where did it go wrong? Things went wrong whenever supporters of science started believing in things that haven't been proven completely true, which sounds a lot like faith, maybe because it is a kind of faith. Dr. David Berlinski, in his book, The Devil's Delusion, makes the bold statement that Western science is above all the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This is an allusion to the definition of faith in Scripture that faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Berlinski's point is that the way people believe in science today is identical to the way that Christians believe in Jesus. This concept isn't talked about enough, but why? One reason is because those who blindly trust science fall into this false reasoning that everything that comes from science is true. However, if you think about it, there are claims in science that require some kind of faith. Now, the majority of science is based on provable truth. Laws of gravity, conservation of energy, and laws of thermodynamics are all provable facts. The problem is, just because science has a lot of facts does not justify saying that everything that comes from science is the truth. For example, atheistic macroevolution. Evolution comes from a position of science, and because it comes from science, it is then regarded as a fact. Here's the flaw. We have no idea if this evolution is true, and unless we build a time machine, we just won't know for sure. We don't know if all of life originated from a single organism, and no amount of science can prove that. But one of the objectives of science does not have to be disproving the existence of a creator. Some of the greatest scientists, Newton, Galileo, and Copernicus, all believed in an intelligent designer and wanted to study science so that they could explore the beauty he made, not trying to disprove his existence. Science and theism both require faith. However, one is a faith in man, and the other is a faith in something much greater than our earthly minds can comprehend. Wilfred Trotter was a surgeon and sociologist whose writings around the time of World War I popularized the term herd instinct. Trotter, in his book Instincts of the Herd in Peace and War, makes a statement about herd instinct, saying, "These facts stated here in an extremely summary way demonstrate that conscious is an indirect result of the gregarious instinct and is in no sense derived from a special instinct, forcing men to consider the good of the race rather than individual desires." By gregarious, Trotter means social. Trotter believes that our conscience or morality is a result of the human social structure and is in no sense an instinct given by the divine. Lewis refutes the herd instinct by stating, "And of course, we sometimes do just feel that sort of desire to help another person. And no doubt that desire is due to herd instinct. But feeling a desire to help is quite different from feeling that you ought to help, whether you want to or not. If morality were merely herd instinct, then our decision-making process would be black and white. Either the action is good for the herd or the action is bad for the herd. However, we have to make hard decisions. And sometimes those decisions go against the herd's benefit, like sacrificing your health for someone else who is unable to help themselves. Yet, the action is right. It is then logical to say that herd instinct is a part of morality, but ultimately under morality's judgment. One of the most popular arguments for why a good creator can't exist is the problem of evil. The problem of evil is a philosophical concept that follows the premise, if there is a God who is good and omnipotent, then why is there evil, and why does he allow it? This is a valid argument, and one that atheists use to debate theists with the goal of understanding why there is bad in our world. Why do loved ones die? Why do innocent, good-hearted people have to suffer? Why do people kill other people? Why are there hurricanes, tornadoes, and tsunamis that destroy villages and cities? These questions must be answered, Because why would anyone want to believe in a God who just sits back and lets his world crumble to dust? St. Thomas Aquinas, in his works Summa Theologica, attempts to unravel this heavily loaded question with the statement, God is the highest good. He would not allow any evil to exist in his works unless his omnipotence and goodness were such as to bring good even out of evil. How does God bring good out of evil? How could evil possibly be used for good? Well, for starters, just the mere presence of evil is enough because it magnifies the importance of good. The analogy of light in a dark room is a useful way of understanding this concept. Suppose you lived in an infinitely light-filled room your entire life. If there were no shadows, no dark spots, and the room never got darker or brighter, would you truly understand that the room has light? No, because light and dark only exist in duality. Without the comparison to darkness, the concept of good cannot be fully demonstrated. Light is only quantifiable when there is some form of darkness to compare it to. A candle is only bright if you place it in a dark room. So how does this apply to good and evil? If we lived in an infinitely good world, then the concept of good cannot be fully demonstrated because there is no evil to compare it to. We only know good and value good because it is contrasted by things that are evil. Evil is a test, and it is on those who are being tested to see the good in the world, to look up to the divine mastermind who wants its prized creation to choose good over all the challenges of evil. The problem of evil is a hard concept for both theists and atheists alike, but the truth can be revealed when one looks past the darkness and sees the light or the goodness at the end of the dark tunnel of our world. Differing opinions and arguments are a natural part of life in this world. Sometimes the opinions of others can lead you to the truth, but other times all the different voices can cause you to stray from it. We have to be careful. When the tricksters in the kingdom said that those who could not see the imaginary clothes were stupid, people believed it. However, all it took was a child to rise up and unravel the trick. We need to be more like that child. Science is great, but there is a difference between evidence proven by hard facts and claims made with guesses, even if those guesses are educated. People will tell you that you were made by chance, that our morality is instinct, and evil is proof that God isn't real. However, these claims are not the truth. The truth is, we were made by a good God who loves each and every one of us. Dr. William Lane Craig says, the modern age, more or less repudiating the idea of a divine lawgiver, has nevertheless tried to retain the ideas of moral right and wrong. Not noticing that, in casting God aside, they have also abolished the meaningfulness for moral right and wrong as well. The presence of a God gives human morality a purpose, to allow the creation to get a glimpse of the intelligence and the benevolence of the universe's creator. Thank you. I would now like to open the floor for any questions.
I'll ask a question. It obviously doesn't help those that are just science or those that are just spiritual to ignore each other and say the other doesn't exist. Have you come across research where the two do agree, and your thoughts on that?
That is a great question, and absolutely. I believe that one of science's purposes should be to explore the beauty that a divine being has given to us, and it shouldn't be disproving his existence. I've been surrounded my entire time at this school by Christian scientists who believe that science is a tool for understanding God because he gave us this world. And so, yes, I think that science should shift more to a theistic standpoint, and it shouldn't be science versus God. It should be science and God. Yes.
I think this is like such an interesting topic, and I think someone that holds like an atheistic view would find it really interesting too. Have you had the chance of like getting to share your beliefs on this with someone that holds that viewpoint, and like how do they receive it if you have?
Yes. Actually, for this paper, I did interview an atheist, and that's how I came to the conclusion of the points that I talked about, where science is fact, religion is faith, morality is instinct, and the problem of evil. I came to those three conclusions to talk about in my paper because that's what my atheist interviewee responded with. And I'm not 100% sure if my paper truly hit something inside her, but I think that I planted a seed for getting her to change her mind because I was in her shoes. The reason that I chose this topic was because last year I was an associated atheist. I didn't really believe that God was real. And I've been raised in a Christian household, so I wanted to give God another chance of touching my heart and drawing me back to the faith. So I decided to write my senior thesis on proving the existence of God. And so that's how I came to this topic, and it has strengthened my faith to a point that I've never seen before in my life. So,
I have a question. I want to phrase it correctly. Just suppose I was an atheist, which I'm not. How would you, as a Christian, explain to me that there may not be necessarily a scientific fact for miracles?
a scientific fact for miracles. That's a great question.
Or is there a scientific?
That's hard because I don't think you can scientifically prove that you can turn water to wine or that you can bring someone who's been dead for 3 days back to life. So just the fact that there were people who said, that was true, I saw that, and they were willing to be killed for that. It's one thing to just say it, and then when you're confronted, say, oh yeah, I was lying. None of that stuff happened. He didn't come back from the dead. He didn't turn water to wine. That takes a lot of guts to be killed for that. And so I would say that on its own is proof, because your life is special, and giving that up to serve a God who performs miracles is pretty special and something that you can't just ignore. So,
Thank you.
yes.
How can we quantify that people, like everyone does have moral values? Because there are people that argue people who are like psychopathic or suffer from other mental illnesses do not have moral values. And there are people who believe that certain things that the majority of people believe are moral are totally, or are immoral are totally fine to do.
Excellent question. C.S. Lewis actually talks about this claim, and he says that when you think of a person, you think of someone with 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 fingers, 10 toes. However, not every person has 2 arms or 2 legs. Or there are people who are colorblind, but you then don't say that all humans are colorblind. You say, we can see color, but there are some people who can't. So you don't judge the group as a whole because of the outliers. Morality is a trait of humans, and some people have stronger moral values than others. And so, yes, there are people who don't have moral codes, but that is an outlier. And just like someone being colorblind, it applies the same thing with morality. Yes?
Say, like, you did convince an atheist that there was a divine being through this paper. What further steps would you take after this to convince them of the Christian God specifically?
Yes, and I'll kind of touch on why I didn't specifically go into detail about the God of Christianity. And in my research, I found that atheists are particularly hostile to one religion, and that is Christianity. And I do think that that is partly on us because when someone says that they're atheists, our first response is, I have to tell them how wrong they are. And that doesn't really go over well with some people. But if I can get them on board of a God exists, I think that just the logic of the Bible, the fact that it never contradicts itself, the story of redemption versus works, it's a faith-based religion, not a work-based. It's so different from all the other religions in a good way that it's almost interesting to me how once you get to that point, you can't pick Christianity because the other religions, they have minor flaws in their logics and their faiths that Christianity fills 100% to the brim with. So that's how I would do that.
Riley, you have done an excellent job researching this topic. I bet there are a lot more questions that you could continue answering, but we appreciate your presentation. Very good job. Thank you.
Thank you.